The 2025 Global Championships just ended, so we're going to be grading all 33 teams on their performance, from S tier all the way down to F tier. Okay, so we'll start with the winners, Queasy Swizzy and Murstache. We'll chuck them up in the S tier. They played a great tournament, 3 wins in a row on day 1. Day 2 wasn't as impressive, 15th place overall, a few issues there. But listen, they won the tournament, they played exceptionally, they have to be in S tier. A team on the opposite end of the spectrum, unfortunately, is Clicks, Higgs and Yomzo, and they're going to go in the F tier. 18th place with uncontested Supernova Academy for a team of their quality, a team that narrowly missed out on winning Major 2. It's just not good enough. Feels like they had sort of every luxury afforded to them in this tournament, but they just couldn't make it work. And I know they're the type of team where they want to win, and as soon as they were in a situation where that wasn't possible, it definitely looks like their heads drops. And I'm sure they could have got a better placement than 18th, but they have to go in F tier, unfortunately. Okay, now we've got Muzz, Shadow, and Sphinx. These guys actually played pretty well. It wasn't a great day 1, but day 2 they finished 3rd overall, so they got a 10th place finish for the whole tournament, which is pretty impressive, coming out of Resistance base. I don't think many people had them in their top 10, so for the overperformance, I think they deserve to be in the B tier. Up next, we've got Visuals, Braids, and Diminished, who didn't have the greatest tournament, coming in 23rd. Obviously, they expected to have Foxy Floodgate uncontested, and then Peterbot ended up taking some of their loot and W keying them. So they struggled a lot of games. They couldn't surge trade like they normally would. I think a lot of that is down to the fact that they're a weaker fighting trio, so they kind of couldn't stake their claim. They couldn't defend their territory as well as other teams did. Considering it's their first ever LAN vote, we'll put them in the D tier. I think they've just about done enough to stay out of F, purely based on the fact that they are quite inexperienced. And then we move to Peterbot, Ritual and Cold. They definitely didn't have the tournament that they wanted. Obviously the situation with Dystopia City, they would have been triple contested if they landed there. So they ended up sort of taking a little bit of loot from Foxy Floodgate, landing on that train, and then just W keying teams. It felt like on day 1, whatever they tried, it never worked. Day 2 was actually a bit better. They were 2nd overall for the day coming into the final game, which is pretty decent. Truthfully, they got enough kills, that wasn't an issue, but they didn't make enough end games, and that's where it all fell apart. For a team of their quality, despite the fact they were in a very unfortunate situation, I still have to put them in the D tier, even though 15th, the situation they were in, isn't actually that bad. But it's Peterbot, so you hold them to high expectations. Pix, Dom, and Demus, I'm going to put them in the A tier, considering it was their first LAN. Obviously, these guys had never made an FNCS Grands until this year. They're on a huge come-up, huge breakout year for them. And they played well. They were very consistent. They got a win, a couple of very high finishes. And they got 6th overall. They probably would have got top 3 had they not been keyed by Malabuka quite randomly in the last 2 games. So I think A tier is fair for them, considering that, you know, on a different day, they could have contended for the win. Next up, we've got Fredoxy, Pablo, and Chino. It's tough to rank these guys because obviously they were contested, but considering that, they did pretty well. They had a lot of kills, a 19 kill win, which is very impressive. They definitely got the better of Tayson off spawn as well. 7th place finish overall, considering they were contested, is pretty impressive. I think it's good enough for a spot in the A tier. Next up, we've got Vico, Venom, and Flixie. Obviously a very good trio, but they were contested by Coyote at Canyon Crossing the whole tournament. Definitely a mixed performance for them. They were looking good at one point, but they died early in the last 4 games and dropped off from 6th or 7th finish up all the way to 14th, which wasn't ideal. I'm going to put them in D tier. I think they arguably could go in C, but I know this trio would have had high expectations. And truthfully, I would have expected them to do a bit better than 14th, so we're going to put them in D. Then we've got Focus, Mixer, and Opal, who finished in 20th place, which is probably about where you would have expected them to finish. It wasn't a great performance. They did so well in Major 3 because they were trading Surge with Gearas at Canyons Crossing the whole time, and that wasn't such a availability in this Grand Finals. I'm going to put them in C. Even though they finished below a couple of the teams in the D tier, I do think that we had lower expectations for them, so I think C is fair. Then we've got Ping, Wox, and Malabuka, and it was definitely a tale of 2 days for these guys. The first day, pretty anonymous. The second day, very, very good. Looked like a completely different trio. They ended up finishing 8th. It's kind of hard to determine where to put them. I don't think the expectations were sky high for these guys either. They were kind of out of form. They had a very poor performance in Major 3. I'm going to put them in the B tier. I think that seems fair. Here's one of our surprise trios, Striker, Tisku, and Kadu. They ended up coming in 12th place, which was pretty impressive, and they won a game. Very good. I don't think a lot of people would have had them that high. Outlaw Oasis isn't a great drop, so you wouldn't expect much out of them. Certainly not a 12th place finish. They did way above expectations. Sure, it's not as high as some of the teams, but I'm going to put them in A tier. Let's talk about Vanya, Pixie and Marius, because these guys did very well to challenge Queasy right up until the last game, considering they were 185 points behind them on day 1. They made 5 out of 6 end games on day 2. Great finishes, very high finishes. The only reason I'm not going to put them in S tier, I'm going to put them in A, right at the top though. The only reason they're not in S tier is because there were a few times where they didn't really take their opportunities. There was one game where they came 4th, where had they won that, well, that would have been some points back. They also lost that mid-game fight to Queasy's trio in game 11. Had they taken those opportunities, they'd probably be in the S tier. Now we've got Bacapars and Pump. They were contested at the split below first order base. Ended up coming 17th. Actually pretty decent. I don't mind that at all. I'll put them in C. I think that's fair. They were contested, so you can't expect too much from them. Now we've just got a bunch of teams that I'm just going to put in the F tier. Victor v Epic Whale and Paper should really have left the POI. They didn't, and they paid the price. Mansur's trio didn't do very well. Tinker's trio came dead last, unfortunately. Snowy's trio didn't do great. Vortex's trio struggled despite trading a lot of surge with Queasy. Would have thought they'd do a little bit better. Gabzera's trio also struggling with search, getting ticked a lot. We got the 2 Japanese trios. I'm going to put them both in the D tier, despite the fact that their placements were pretty poor, purely because they got quite a lot of kills. And listen, they were both contested, so you can't expect much more than that. I think they made the best of what they had. Coyote's team's quite a tough one. I'm split between D and F, because on the one hand, they were contested. It's hard to expect them to do well, but on the other hand, Coyote is a good player. You'd want him to be getting in at least the top 20, and he failed to do that. They got top 25. I think I'll put him in D tier, because I don't think they quite did badly enough for F, but it wasn't a great tournament by any means. Resigns, Alex and Amon also in D tier. They didn't really have any bearing on the tournament, so I can't put them any higher. Now we've got iDrop, Hari and Cami, who had a brilliant end to the tournament, ending up finishing in 4th after coming 2nd and 1st in their last 2 games. 4th place for them. It's a lot higher than people were expecting, so they have to go in the A tier in my opinion. A good tournament for them. We've got Phaser, PhD and King. They did okay. They didn't have too many troubles being contested. They finished 11th. Pretty decent performance. I think a B tier is fair for that. Rapid, Canada and Bolts had a good tournament. They finished in 5th place. They won game 1. They were okay. They weren't the best team at the tournament, but I think they did enough to merit being in the A tier. Reek, Cooper and Curly's a really tough one, because in many ways they were good and in many ways they weren't. Obviously, Reek crashed in 2 games. They also really struggled with Surge. I'm sure the 2 go hand in hand to an extent. But if you saw the clip of Reek on Oceanic Stream in the run up to the tournament, you'll know that they didn't have any Surge trading partners. So they were relying on keying teams a lot of the time. So it kind of makes sense that they didn't do great. I mean, 13th isn't a bad finish considering they were in a bit of a precarious situation. I think I'll put them in B. Even though they didn't have an amazing tournament, I think they did the best of what they had. Harist, Tayson and Chicho, they were contested, but they definitely were the 2nd best team at Rangers Ruins. Redoxy got the better of them most of the time. They had a good first game, but after that they were pretty anonymous. I think D tier is probably fair for them. Fiveold, FKS and Hero, we'll chuck them in C. I think they finished 19th in the end. Pretty decent, about where you'd expect, so C seems fair. Arc School and Salco, I'll also put them in C. They ended up being uncontested, which most people didn't expect, so they finished a few places higher than most people predicted, but yeah, decent for them. Now we've got one of the bigger underperformances, Ages, Acorn and Poyo, who are unfortunately going to have to go into the F tier. It just wasn't their tournament, unfortunately. They had uncontested Demon's Debris, but the fact that Aminish kept getting keys really interfered with their surge strategy. They kept dying in the moving zones a lot. It just wasn't their tournament. It really just felt like everything they tried didn't go to plan. But it's the same thing as Clicks, Higgs and the Omzo. When you're a team that's that good with an uncontested POI, you have to do better. So F seems fair. Chap, Savage and Reason ended up coming in 9th. Pretty decent. I had them to come about there, so I think they met the expectations. We'll put them in B. They didn't have an amazing day 2. I think they had a bit of bad luck being keyed in a few games. Obviously famously getting keyed by Clicks, but I think B's pretty decent. They can hold their heads high with that. And finally, Seti, Yapko and Panzer. I think I predicted these guys to come 20th and they ended up coming 3rd. which says a lot about how good their performance was. They won off spawn every single time of asking. They didn't lose to Tinker Kazian Aspect at Kappa Kappa Factory once. They just played very well. They played very well, and yes, they had the good surge options with all the Polish teams landing around them, but they made the best of their games. I think for the fact that they finished 17 places higher than I predicted, and indeed most people had them, you know, in the bottom half of the leaderboards in their predictions, I think they have to be an S tier. I think that level of overperformance deserves to be credited. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with the tier list. Who do you think should be higher up? Who do you think should be lower down? I want to know what you guys think. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video.